Begging for a Sign from Spirit. That is a chapter we will be reading today from Sacred Hello's Messages from Heaven. I am Noelle, and I wrote this book back in 2020, and it's all about how science and creativity really transformed this decade of grief I had had since losing my mom unexpectedly. It's a tribute to everything from science, like we'll be talking about today, and then also just other life experiences with loss and how self-judgment after who you are after you lose someone, and how putting life back together really looks, and holding all of those pieces in our hands at the same time. As you know, if you're watching this, grief is not a linear thing. There's many layers to it and different sections we have to kind of work through. And so this book is so special to me, and I'm reading a chapter every Sunday from it. So we will start today with Begging for a Sign from Spirit. I'm so glad you're here. One of the hardest things I found after someone passes is wanting to know if they are okay. We miss them. We ache for them. We want to know they are still connected to us in some way. I remember sharing my dream visit with my family, and then months later having a very clear second dream visit as well. There's a past video about that. I'll put the link in the description. My sister told me she had been wishing for a dream visit too and had never had one. Why do some of us remember dreams better than others? Maybe my sister or others have had dream visits but aren't in the habit of remembering their dreams. I also recently heard a sleep scientist say that those of us who do not wake up to an alarm clock or instant interruptions tend to be better at remembering our dreams. We can stay in our dream state a little bit longer and then wake up and think about the dream or subconsciously process the dream before jumping out of bed and beginning our day. I'd like to think that in the big picture, where time doesn't matter as much, we receive the confirmations we are needing when we need them for our highest good. Not simply when we want them. This can be for dreams or signs in general. After my mom died in early 2009, her death was unexpected, so along with the grieving, there was also an incredible amount of shock. There was a tangible feeling of deep loss, not having our mom with us, as my siblings and I continued to have more babies, get married, and make more life changes. Most of us have felt her around us at different times. We have gotten signs or had dreams. As you know, though, there is nothing like a direct hug, a conversation, or looking in a loved one's eyes. I have always been skeptical of people who say they can communicate with spirit. Not skeptical that mediumship is possible. I have friends who can consciously do this, but I do not necessarily believe every medium or psychic, nor do I trust all their intentions. To be fair, I also distrust the churches as well. I do not trust many of their agendas. I think people are messy, and our greed and egos can mess up even the most beautiful of intentions. A couple years ago, after my mom died, I had a call with a medium. She later mailed me a CD recording of our call. I was grateful for this because during the call, I was guarded. As much as I tried to remember everything from our session by memory, there were things I had forgotten until I listened to the recording. During the call, the medium very clearly and specifically talked about things that had happened that day. She talked about what my husband had said to me right before the call. She also passed along my mother's motherly guidance based on what my sister and I had talked about on our call the night before. I had never mentioned our conversation to her. And it was about breastfeeding my kiddo, so very random. Who would think to say that? When I had asked about messages for my brothers or my dad, the next three things she talked about were for my brothers and then my dad. It was unbelievable. I loved, too, that during our call, there were a couple things I did not understand. For instance, she said that my mom was showing her a strand of pearls. Yes, I had a pearl necklace of my mom's, but it was not a particular favorite of mine or sentimental to me. So I did not feel like that was a fit for what she was telling me. The medium told me to keep it in my mind and I will know its meaning down the road. The next morning, I was sitting there having my coffee, and then I looked down at my mug and I gasped. The mug was from my honeymoon cruise. This cruise was the one I was hours from boarding when I found out my mom had died. It was the Norwegian Pearl. Along the side of the ship was a gigantic image of a strand of pearls. It was the same ship that we retook our honeymoon 10 months later on. The same ship that randomly at 3 a.m. I went out on our balcony and I just sobbed. These deep, cathartic sobs. Just cries of missing my mom. I talked out loud to her in the blackness of night over the ocean about my life. I talked about missing her, but being so happy otherwise. Such a strange thing. I was like so blissed out and in love and newly married and happy. And also at the same time carrying this deepest, most horrible hole in my heart of missing my mom. I told her all the random things I would have if she were alive. And then I remembered right before the call with that medium, I had asked my mom to bring up that conversation on the ship as a sign. That's what I asked when I thought about it. I'm like, bring up that call, then I'll know, because nobody knew. Not even my husband knew about that conversation. Wow, she sure did. And I almost missed that sign. Months later, I noticed a song on the radio all the time. Once I remember walking into the garage and the song was on. I got goosebumps from it. I'd heard it in the car often as well, but I never took time to listen to the words. One night, I was reading a book by Alison DuBois. The show Medium is based on her. And she talked about her dad and that he had passed on and how he would communicate with her was through song. I loved imagining the possibility. The next morning, I went to a business meeting, and on my way home, I turned on the radio. That same song that I had kept hearing was just beginning. And I didn't have my baby with me, and I was just fully in concentration mode. So this time, for the first time, I listened to the words, and I was stunned. Here are some of the lyrics. Yes, I understand that every life must end. As we sit alone, I know someday we must go. I'm a lucky man to count on both hands the ones I love. And then the last line of the song is, meet you on the other side. I just sat and cried. And somehow I was caught perfectly between disbelief and certainty. When I got home and I looked it up online, I studied the words and I listened to it over and over, and it was so healing. Then I paid attention to who it was by. Pearl Jam. Yep, another Pearl reference. Mom, you are amazing. The song was released the year she died, yet I was not aware of it until all the above happened in 2011. I have never looked for anyone to agree with me or validate these signs. I don't care. We all have our comfort levels based on what we are scared of or scared to know because of fear or our experiences. We can be afraid of the unknown and also the fear religion has pushed on us. I highly recommend the book called Messages from Spirit by Colette Baron Reed, where she gets into it when the church transitioned from working with spirit mediums to instilling fear about them because they conflicted with the church's agenda. And it's a fascinating read. For me, I have found peace as a Christian, but I also believe in an afterlife, the beauty that can come from communicating, trusting, learning, and working with angels. I have found peace in parts of messages from other religions and spiritual teachings as well. Instead of getting caught up in the religious rules and the fear that sometimes can be taught, I try to live like Jesus did. I use him as the goal instead of the church as the goal. When we have lost someone we love, our biggest shift can come when we stop focusing so much on their passing and instead start to focus on the gratitude for their time in our lives. Reframe from only remembering their death to our experiences we shared, the lessons taught and learned, and the love we gave and received. When we can pull ourselves from the anger of not having longer and instead sit in the gratitude for what we did have, it can unlock us from a loop of deep grief that we are replaying in our minds. I finally started to realize that my mom had lived a whole life of love and making a difference in her 57 years. She was done. She was called home. I do not have to agree with it or even fully understand it. It does give me a way to reframe her death into imagining her seeing her dad again, her past friends. It brings me peace to imagine that there's this larger divine game plan that she is part of. Honoring those 57 years also helps honor her life, why she was here, the differences she made, instead of just focusing on the last day. Once we can balance the grief with appreciation, a new level of healing occurs. Now, I am talking about my mom, who I just adored, and even though she had a really hard last few years, the life lessons she taught me and the love she gave me, there was never a question of if I was loved by her. And I know that there can be so many added layers for when we lose people that maybe there was ongoing disputes with, or they weren't their best selves, so weren't reaching all their potential, we'll just say. And I know that can add so many layers. Sometimes I've heard of people too where they really wanted a sign from somebody, and then it seems like someone else comes through and they're like, why are you taking up my time? Like, not that you didn't care, but like ultimately you really were hoping to hear from this other person. And so I don't know if it's a humor thing or it's just, like I said in the book, of what we need to know when we need to know it. But I liked picturing that there's still a lot out there we don't know. Energetically, this energy is here before it's in our bodies and after it leaves our bodies. And whatever way you want to frame that and think of it, whether time is linear or all at once, I mean, all of it, either way, it comes down to these little experiences that we have that we can really hold on to and help us get through our grief, help us pull us from the depths of those really hard, sad, dark times. So I invite you to watch the playlist where I'm reading all the chapters from this book. And there's such a wide range of topics, from losing a pet to my grandpa to just being angry at everybody after trying to just get back to life again and not being ready to. And it's been 17 years now since my mom passed, so I can say these things with some confidence of what that life looks like in the big picture after losing like someone who's so close. But also I wrote a lot of these pages in the years immediately following losing her. So it's this mix of what it felt like in the trenches versus also I'm standing out of the trenches now. And if you're in them, I offer my words and my heart and my insight as like a hand to like just help pull you through when you're ready. And to know that A, I'm honoring where you're at. B, that there is hope that you can still love that person with your whole heart and also carry on in living a great life. And know that your life is worthy. You are not only defined by the people you've lost, and that you are worthy in your own right to have a great life. And sometimes doing that is the best way to honor the people that you love that are no longer here. Take all the wisdom that they had hoped for you and wanted for you, and the great experiences they would just hope that you would be having in your life, and run with it and make this life amazing. So thank you for being here. I hope you'll join me again for my next video. And I hope you have a really wonderful day.